In space, no one can hear you scream. On Earth, everyone can hear you scream.
Hey man, you want to go outer space?
Nah, man, nobody can hear you scream up there.
And outer space is full of penis-headed rape demons, so we should probably stay here on Earth.
I agree with that.
Because I don't want to get pregnant with an alien. What are we talking about today, Mr. Mash?
The Predator franchise.
Wrong. Incorrect. We're talking about the Alien franchise.
Oh, that's right. You said penis-headed rape demon, not vagina-faced hunter demon.
Right. Completely different. In the pantheon of modern horror icons, the Alien is way up there.
I agree.
Maybe only Jason's hockey mask is more famous of an image.
Ooh. Freddy's Glove, maybe?
Yeah, there are others. The Alien is way up there. It is an image that people know. A hugely popular monster design. Since we're sci-fi horror nerds, the series means a lot to us. We're big fans of this franchise. I am, anyway. I'm a big fan of about half of the franchise, let's put it that way.
That's a fair assessment for me.
The series starts extremely strong. The later films are divisive, to put it mildly.
They each have good things about them.
We're going to talk about it. We've got 5 movies and some change to talk about. We should strap on our spacesuits and go for a long, long hypersleep.
I thought we agreed we weren't going to space.
Oh, yeah, we're not going to. We're just going to talk about some movies.
I mean, what are you going to do, fart your way up into space?
I'm cutting that out.
Intercepted a transmission of unknown origin.
Transmission? Out here?
SOS.
Human.
Unknown.
Alien.
Any systematized transmission indicating a possible intelligent origin must be investigated.
In space, no one can hear you scream.
The original, Ridley Scott's 1979 Alien, one of the earliest R-rated movies I can remember seeing. Probably the first grown-up horror movie I ever saw.
That's hard for me to say, man. I don't know. I've seen so many.
I knew what the Alien looked like. Its image was all over the pop culture sphere. It still is.
Oh, and they made fun of it so many times on Animaniacs and cartoons we watched as kids.
Yeah, the chestburster scene was frequently parodied. Via pop culture osmosis, I was aware, finally it convinced my mom to let me rent the first 2 movies. That was my first exposure to Alien, and I loved it as a kid. I was fascinated. You want to tell the good people listen to the show who clearly have no idea what the first Alien is about? Because if you're listening to the show, you've definitely not seen it.
The movie is about their tow service.
Yeah, they're towing a mining ship.
They're in hypersleep. They wake up because Mother, that wonderful woman that she is,
Supercomputer that runs a ship.
Mother detects distress signal. It's the protocol of the Weyland-Yutani company to automatically answer any distress calls.
Well, this is what the characters are led to believe, anyway.
Right. They investigate on planet,
You remember the name of the planet?
I know it's like 326.
LV-426.
426, that's what it was.
They find something.
They find a derelict spacecraft. They send a crew of 3 or 4 people to investigate this derelict spacecraft.
And they find something very strange.
Keen stumbles across Sea of Eggs. There's this mist. I'm mentioning the mist specifically because I think it's really fucking cool. A mist that's also a force field.
Yeah.
Magic mist.
There's a laser over the mist. That's something I picked up on this time as well. It's a really strange, odd, interesting choice.
In the egg, there's a facehugger.
Touches the egg, facehugger comes out, he gets pregnant with an alien, alien comes out, starts killing people in the ship.
Yes.
You remember the name of the ship?
Nostromo?
Yeah, the Nostromos.
God, I'm a nerd. That hurt.
We are in deep nerd territory this week. This movie was written by a guy named Dan O'Bannon. Previously wrote and starred in John Carpenter's premiere movie, Dark Star. And he's been very open in saying that Alien is basically a remake of Dark Star as a serious movie. Dark Star was a comedy. Alien is the same premise as a serious horror film. O'Bannon was also writing a screenplay about gremlins loose on a World War II fighter jet that went into this. A lot lot of people have pointed out parallels between Alien and some older films, such as It, The Terror from Beyond Space, 50s monster movie about an alien that gets on a ship. Also Mario Bava's Planet of the Vampires, which features a scene where a group of astronauts go into a abandoned ship and find a giant skeleton. But mostly, you know what Alien is, an old dark house movie in space.
Right.
Or should I say, in space.
Or should you say, in space?
Yeah, they're in a big scary building and there's something in there picking up everybody off one by one. And then there was none on a spaceship. This is truckers in space. They're space truckers.
Yeah, it's Smokey and the Bandit in space.
Sort of, but not really.
The alien is Smokey.
So Jackie Gleason is the alien. Or is the alien Jackie Gleason?
The alien is Jackie Gleason.
These guys, they're not scientists. They argue about wages and bonuses. They bitch about the food. And this is not a clean future. This is not the pristine, utopian future of Star Trek. Their spaceship, it's dirty, leaky, rusty, greasy. This is a lived-in world. And what do you think of that Nostromo set, that incredible set?
Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah, the production design of this movie is out of this world, if you will.
I mean, aside from that, it's the perfect setting for a horror movie.
Ridley Scott's direction is very stark. The opening credits, a slow pan through outer space while the very foreboding Jerry Goldsmith score plays. Do you understand what the title, when it first started appearing, is supposed to be?
No.
They're hash marks counting the victims.
Oh.
Long opening sequence. There's not any dialogue in this movie for about the first 10 minutes, showing everybody waking up from cryosleep. It creates this very unsettling atmosphere. The movie maintains that sense of quiet dread throughout the entire runtime.
Okay, but can we talk about the chest burster scene?
Well, we're going to get there. What do you think of the old computers on the spaceship? The computers are obviously antiquated.
It does bother me, I'll admit it, but I tend to let it go. I understand that this movie was made back in 1979.
I actually think the old green on black computers work. Shows you how shitty the spaceship is.
It's supposed to be high tech for the time.
Oh yeah, of course. The production design of this movie is amazing, especially once they get on the planetoid and they enter the derelict ship. That design, weird curving,
celestial,
bizarre and interesting. One of the reasons I think this movie has spawned such an extensive, expanded universe. When they enter that ship, it's black inside. It looks like a dead body. The opening is very, well, I'll just say it, it's rather vaginal.
I never noticed before. Even when you told me, I didn't get it. But you know, in Prometheus, the giant people, the engineers, they find one of those in there.
Yeah, they totally do.
That's what that whole prequel was based around, was that one scene.
Pretty much. For years, they called that the space jockey, this giant fossilized thing in this chair with like a cannon of some sort or something. For years, debate raged about what the hell that thing was. There's no explanation in this movie. We don't know what's going on. There's no explanation for where the alien comes from. That just fires the imagination. Now there's a prequel, so now we know for sure. But for years, the assumption was the space jockeys created the xenomorphs as a weapon. As a kid, that wasn't my thought process at all. My thought process was the thing that's about to happen on the Nostromo's happened on this ship.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the alien itself. Let's talk about each of the phases of the creature. Well, let's start with the egg.
The egg is very different in this film than it is in any other film.
Leathery, weird, organic thing. It doesn't look like an egg as we think of it.
But the reason I'm saying it's different is because it's actually transparent.
You can see the thing writhing inside of it.
Begs the question, why the fuck would you stay there and stick your face in it?
This franchise has a history of characters sticking their faces in things where they shouldn't be.
Oh, hence the moral of the story. Okay.
Maybe. When the egg opens up, Kane should have skedaddled. He should have gotten the fuck out
The
of there.
fuck with that when he saw the damn thing writhing in the fucking egg? I would have been like, see ya.
And then we wouldn't have had a movie. Facehugger itself looks like weird spider crab thing, but it also looks like a hand.
With a spine.
As a kid, I was fascinated with the way it attaches to the face, wraps its tail around the neck, so there's no way to get it off without killing the person.
Which is something else that has been parodied throughout the years.
Oh yeah, the chest burster sequence, which we've talked about a little bit already on our favorite things episode.
I just want to talk about, and I'm sure we mentioned it on the last thing, but how Veronica Cartwright didn't know about the blood splatter.
That scream is genuine.
Oh God!
Oh God! They knew it was in the script, they knew it was going to happen, but they did not know there was going to be that much viscera spraying genuine, iconic moments in horror. Something was happening on screen that nobody had seen before. Design-wise, the chest burster, what is it?
A penis.
It's a dick. It's a dick with a screaming mouth on it. The guy who designed the alien, H.R. Giger, he drew these very disturbing images that were both sexual and mechanical, corpse-like at the same time. Dan O'Bannon met Giger while working on the Dune movie that didn't get made, and he saw the artwork that he had done for that film, and he said, wow, if you got this guy to make a monster for a monster movie, it wouldn't look like any other monster before it. And boy, is that true. The design of the mature xenomorph is unparalleled. It really is one of the greatest creature designs ever, if not the greatest.
Oh, yeah.
There's no eyes. It's got the dick head, which we make fun of. Its silhouette is completely different.
The way that it carries itself, you can't really tell that it's a dickhead unless it's pointed out to you. And then once it's pointed out to you, you see see it every time you see the
Oh
movie.
yeah. One day I realized it's a dick. The whole film is wrapped up in
Space rape.
space rape. That's what it's about. The entire franchise is based on space rape. And not space rape of women, space rape of dudes. What does the facehugger do? It gets you pregnant. It sticks its dick in your mouth, gets your stomach pregnant. Chest bursting scene is some perverse variation on birth. It's a man giving birth to a child. A hideous penis monster child.
In that same regard, though, women have gotten face hugged before.
Yeah,
in the series.
and there's a sequence later on in the film when Lambert, Veronica Cartwright's character, is alone with a xenomorph. And all you see is its tail slithering around her leg. On Ripley's radio, you just hear her screaming. There's some pretty strong implications in that moment. It's sex, and it's disease.
It's body horror.
This is a definitive body horror movie. And I just don't think anybody had really done anything like that before. Parasitic monster. Based off a wasp that attacks tarantulas, impregnates it with its eggs. Larvae hatch, they eat the tarantula. Because nature is scary. Transplanting that to a sci-fi monster was a brilliant, amazing thing. I cannot overstate enough how much I admire that concept and then the creature design in this movie.
Well, silicone skin, so they can adapt to any environment.
Yeah, it's a silicate life form. It's not carbon-based like we are.
It has acidic blood.
There's no easy way to kill it.
As simple as writing a few words on a page, and then they made a monster that was nearly impossible to kill.
There's a scene where they nick Facehugger trying to get it off of Kane's face, and then the blood burns 3 floors of the ship.
Yeah.
So they can't blow the damn thing up. Do you think this film is scary?
Yeah.
This is an intense film. People tend to think of it as a science fiction film. When Ridley Scott was making it, he said, we're making a horror movie. Aside from the chest burster, which everybody knows it's coming, it's beautifully choreographed, but that moment isn't really scary anymore. But there are moments in it when Brett, Harry Dean Stanton's character, is killed, which is the first time we really get a look at mature xenomorph in any way.
Well, how it comes down out of them chains.
And
Ugh.
what does that chamber do? Why is there this leaky water chamber in the ship? Is it a coolant tank or something?
I thought that's what they said it was.
You never really get a complete good look at the alien. In that first moment, all you see is the head and the tail covered in slime. They covered the whole suit in KY jelly, so it's always dripping. But the one that really got me on this viewing is when Dallas is in the vents tracking it.
Yes.
You can hear the radar beeping, so you know it's getting closer. He is in this very tight space. And it's clear that the alien is much better at navigating this area than the human is. Amazing jump scare. Pops up out of nowhere, its arms are out, and it shrieks cold cut. And this movie is not above jump scares. There are a couple spring-loaded cats.
The aliens have been referred to as bugs, serpents, and dragons.
Mm-hmm.
The dragon thing is null and void. It's definitely not a dragon.
It's kind of serpentine.
I've always viewed them as insectoid because they have an exoskeleton.
Calling them bug things, James Cameron stole that from Robert Heinlein's Starship Troopers.
You might want to specify you're talking about the book.
Oh yeah, of course the book predates the movie. When I found out that the alien in the Alien series had a name, because it is kind of awkward calling it the Alien. Wait, which alien are you talking about? There's thousands of aliens in fiction. You know, the alien from Alien. Oh, okay. As a teenager, when I discovered they call them xenomorphs 4 times in the entire series.
Yeah, it's like once per movie.
Well, no, not at all in this first one.
Twice in the second movie.
They say it in a deleted scene in the third one, and that's it. Xenomorph, which is Latin for alien shape. And that says it all, doesn't it? Oh, and we didn't talk about the second mouth. The penis head inside of the penis. And it kills people. It penetrates people. Crazy, fucked up, disturbing things ever. This is basically a body count movie. People are picked off until Ripley's the only one left alive at the end. Wonderful sequence where she's trying to escape the ship. She's pissed off at Mother, and the whole place is filling full of white steam.
Mother, you bitch!
Yeah. Watching this for the first time, I didn't know if she was going to make it out of there. I guess I was aware of the sequels, but I didn't know that Ripley would become this reoccurring character in all the films. The alien could be around any corner, man. When she gets away from the ship, that beautiful explosion, she's still not fucking safe. The movie has a 4th act. It continues past what would normally be the logical endpoint. And apparently that wasn't in the original script. That was a decision the director made. Speaking of great jump scares, when the hand comes out of the wall,
Yeah.
classic horror thing. She's completely vulnerable. She's changing into her underwear. And weirdly, I've never thought that was for titillation's purpose. I thought that was the movie showing us how vulnerable Ripley is in this moment.
Yeah, but I found that there's people that are interested in that scene.
Oh, okay.
I've never really viewed Sigourney Weaver as a sexual being,
No.
but I don't think I've ever found her sexy. you know?
Except in Ghostbusters when she was possessed.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Almost every single movie in the series blows the thing out the fucking airlock. And even then, it's not enough. She blows it out the airlock and it tries to crawl back onto the ship until she hits the boosters. It's very hard
It's
to
probably
kill.
still alive.
This alien is John McClane. Dies hard. At least in this first film.
I know, as it's floating away in space, it's going, yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker!
Yeah, but because it's a xenomorph, it just sounds like... We mentioned Weaver. Let's talk a bit about the cast. The fact that Ripley becomes, let's call her the final girl, is something of a subversion. The movie sets it up that Tom Skerritt as Dallas is the hero.
Yeah.
He gets killed off halfway through the movie. He's top billed, reasonable authority figure. It's very rare that you see a genre film where the authority figure is not a complete idiot.
Yeah, that's sad.
And after he gets killed off, Yaphet Kotto's Parker becomes the main character, and he's super tough, macho guy, which is maybe makes it ironic when he gets stabbed in the head with the penis. Ripley succeeds because she's the only one that keeps her head cool throughout the whole movie. And if she had her way, the whole thing wouldn't have happened anyway, because she says to Ash, don't bring it on the ship.
Yep.
If they had listened to her, none of this shit would have happened. Now let's talk about Ash. Ash is a goddamn robot.
He's also a hobbit.
Yes, he is. I keep referring to this, but when I first saw the movie, there's that close-up on Ash's face when the white, milky substance, which is probably another sex thing, is running down his face. I thought, what in the hell is happening?
Is it actually milk?
They used milk and creamer when they were making the movie, but in universe, its purpose, I have no idea. It's some sort of fluid inside the androids. They knock him on the head, and the whole fucking head comes out, and there's entrails. I'd never seen an android in sci-fi that looked like that before.
Bone thing.
As a kid, my concept of what an android was Data on Star Trek, and this is very, very different from that.
Yeah.
Continuing with the whole creepy asphyxiation rape thing, when Ash rolls up the newspaper, tries to asphyxiate Ripley with that. Who does that?
I'm under the mindset that once he starts to bleed...
He's gone crazy.
Well, crazy, because he's an android.
What does Bishop say in Aliens? Oh, that model was really glitchy.
Yeah, he glitches. Smacked him upside the head so that made a few wires short out.
And it's at this point when the movie reveals... The thing that really sucks about the future is that corporations do not give a shit about people, so nothing's changed.
Weyland-Yutani owns 90% of Earth.
That's pretty heavily implied throughout. The company wants the alien, and they don't care if everybody gets killed in the process. They don't give a shit. They want the alien. They want to make it into a weapon. They try to do that in every single movie, to the point by the time Alien Resurrection comes around, it's like, guys, give it up. Now, have you seen the director's cut? The quote-unquote director's cut?
I own the director's cut.
Very little difference between the original theatrical version and the re-release version. Ripley Scott says it isn't a director's cut. The theatrical release was his director's cut. That's his preferred version. Fox said, hey, we'll give you a little money if you insert these famous deleted scenes. There's a very famous deleted scene that is reinserted into Alien, the anniversary re-release or whatever you want to call it.
Is it the one where Veronica Cartwright punches Ripley and calls her a bitch?
No. It's the one where Ripley finds the eggs inside the ship. The xenomorph has cocooned Dallas and a couple other victims, and they're turning into eggs. Subsequently made non-canon in the sequel, but that suggests that the alien is a self-producing life form. One is enough to make a colony. I prefer the theatrical cut, and they're almost exactly the same. The re-release actually runs a minute shorter. It's 116 versus the theatrical version's 117. But they're pretty much the same movie. You're really not missing out if you watch one or the other. It's a great movie.
Just tell me one thing, Burke. You're going out there to destroy them, right? Not to study, not to bring back, but to wipe them out.
That's the plan.
I got signals, I got readings in front and behind.
There's nothing back here.
Look, I'm telling you, there's something moving and it ain't us.
Get them out of there! They cut the power.
How could they cut the power, man? They're animals.
Aliens. This time, it's war.
Let's talk about my favorite.
Aliens is your favorite of the five.
Yeah.
They're both really good.
I like the horror of the first one. I feel like that this one, above the first one, really sets up the mythology of the series.
That's fair.
And
though the first one has some fantastic myth-making in it.
It does, and I'm not trying to sell it short. I'm really not. This one works with the fear from the first one, these aliens making a colony.
As the title promises, it's not an alien.
There's more of them.
It's aliens.
But wait, there's more!
It's such a subtle way to designate the sequel, isn't it?
And I also like the relationships of the Marines. It has like comic relief in it.
I think a lot of people think of the second one as just Marines blowing up monsters. Aliens is almost as much of a horror movie as the first one. The big difference is this time they're easier to kill. They've got guns and explosives so they can kill the xenomorphs, but it doesn't matter because there's lots of them now. Who directed this movie?
James Cameron.
I actually didn't know this. I read this on Wikipedia. He was approached to make Alien 2 before the Terminator even started filming. They just read the script and said, this is the guy. How does this follow up from Alien? Basically, the follow-up is that Ripley can't catch a break, man.
I mean, pretty much. I mean,
she thought she got away. Turns out, nope, sorry, your stasis pod drifts through space for 60 years. And she doesn't age any because she was in chrono sleep the whole time. They get her back to Earth, finds out, oh, hey, your daughter's dead and you're fired. And nobody believes you that you found a penis-headed rape demon in space. Hey, the corporation tries to colonize this planet. Oops, penis-headed rape demons. Hey, Ripley, you want to help us out? Not really. Too bad. That's the plot. Paul Reiser says, if you help us out, we'll get you your old job back. And she never makes it back to Earth is the sad part. So so she never got her old job back.
The real tragedy with Ripley is that she constantly has to watch people die. She's like an omen of death.
Yeah, they even talk about that in the third movie. Everybody who gets close to her dies. She has really shitty luck. It's sort of weird that Aliens is so well regarded. Some people say it's better than the first movie. Most everybody agrees that it's as good, and it really is a great sequel. But it follows almost the exact same story beats.
I think it's done intentionally.
The eggs are found, creatures get out, go nuts, they outsmart the people. Ripley escapes a huge explosion, only for the alien to sneak aboard the shuttle, forcing her to fight back and shoot it out the airlock. Am I describing the first movie or the second movie?
And I would say that you're describing the first movie because you failed to mention whether or not the alien was the queen.
The point is, this one follows a lot of the same story beat. It's so good because Cameron made a different sort of movie. I really like the look of this movie. Cool blue for the first half, and then the second half it's mostly red.
Yeah.
And he creates some amazing images. My favorite is when Newt's in the water, and the xenomorph rises out of the water behind her.
That fucking tail is...
Yeah, that's a great one. Or
I love those tails.
the Queen Alien is first introduced. It's backlight on her.
Yeah, and then she rips off her vagina. Oh my god!
Exact, JD, exact. It's not exactly the same thing.
It's her vagina.
The aliens don't give internal birth, not inside of themselves anyway. They don't have a vagina. Just make it sound weird. She rips off her vagina there, fine. Maintains a lot of the things that Ridley Scott did in the first movie. This movie also has a scene where the camera does a slow pan through the ship as the Marines are waking up. That's the big difference. Ripley's not alone this time.
Vasquez.
Jeanette Goldstein in this movie, I know she would rip me in two. She would snap me like a chicken bone, but she's hot, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That cast is great. She's this super tough chick. She has camaraderie with another soldier. I think it's Frost. And they never flat out say it's a romantic relationship, but it's heavily implied. A lot of people, their favorite Marine is Hicks, played by Michael Biehn, aka Kyle Reese. He's alright. I like Michael Biehn. The character's fine. He's very similar to Kyle Reese. Blandly heroic in a lot of ways.
Yeah, favorite has always been Bill Paxton.
It's Hudson. Mine too. Game over, man.
Game over, man! Game over!
In the first half of the movie, he is all macho bravado. He's hitting on every woman around him. He's a total sleaze. And because it's Bill Paxton, it's awesome. If anybody else did it, it would be weird and gross.
Him and Vasquez are the only Marine actors trying to act.
There are good performances, but Hicks, Vasquez, and Hudson are the only important Marines. There's a bunch of others that'll get killed off pretty quickly.
Hicks, like you said, is bland. To me, has no characterization really whatsoever.
He's good chemistry with Ripley, the scene where he's teaching her how to shoot.
Somebody had to try and sex Ripley up. She's been 60 years not getting laid. She needed some.
Hudson is my favorite. Very clear shift. After the xenomorph shows up, he realizes they're screwed, and he spends the entire second half of the movie freaking out. Animals, man! What do you mean they have a plan?
I do have one little gripe about the movie. It's a line that Ripley says. One of those things managed to wipe out my whole crew. I understand that there's multiples of these things, but these guys also have guns where you had none. You had a fucking cattle prod and a glitchy flamethrower.
Yeah, it is a minor complaint. I think they're a little too easy to kill in the sequel. And I know that's the whole point. It doesn't matter if you kill one, there's 100 more.
Yeah, but they still do play with what happens if you get too close when you kill them.
That happens at least twice. Vasquez's boyfriend gets splattered in the face with acid. Later, when Ripley and Hicks are in the elevator, and he feeds the one xenomorph a shotgun, gets in his face and it gets on his armor, and he has to pull that off before it eats him through.
Yeah.
All that stuff is great. And then we didn't mention Lance. Lance Hinkerson?
Oh, Lance Hinkerson. I'm like, who the fuck was Lance in that movie?
Bishop.
Knife gag.
Oh, the knife trick is great. Speaking of Bill Paxton, he starts doing the knife gag, and Bill starts screaming like, ah!
And his eyes start to bulge out of his eyes.
I love that. Bishop is the good android. In the first movie, Ash was a sinister android. That'd be a good band name, Sinister Android. Bishop is the good android. He even quotes Asimov's robotic laws. He says he can't hurt a human or by inaction cause a human to be harmed. So good in this. I love Lance. Lance is one of James Cameron's favorite actors, apparently. He's in many of his movies.
Talk about those robotic laws one time.
Okay.
If we ever get to the point where we actually make automaton, AI...
Real robots.
Do you actually think that they'll actually use those laws that some author wrote down in a book somewhere?
They won't, because if we make real robots, we're going to use them to kill people.
But those would be different robots, because those would be war robots. In the time of household...
Rosie from the Jetsons.
Yeah, like Rosie from the Jetsons. Will our own personal Rosie follow the law of robotics?
I would hope that our Super Roomba would not gouge our eyes out like they did in the Animatrix. But if science fiction has taught us anything, it's that you can't trust robots, and they will kill you. It's obviously an action film, but this is still a horror movie. No moment in this one is scary as the first movie, but there is some pretty great...
I don't know. The scene with Newt, when they're trying to get to her, and all she hears is the beep, beep,
Oh, yeah.
beep.
That's a
and
good
then they're,
moment.
you know, they're trying to get to her. And
That one's good. A couple moments that really get me. When the aliens start coming out of the fucking floors and start pulling people down. That's intense. The scene that really people will remember as the frightening one of this is when Ripley and Newt are in the room alone with the facehuggers.
oh, yeah.
We actually see the facehuggers do stuff. In the first movie, they just pop out and grab you. But in this one, it's skirting around. Ripley puts her hands up and the tail gets around her neck. And I love the scene. Newt is such a precocious little kid. She slams the cart on the tail. And the scariest thing about the future, though, corporations still don't give a shit about people. Thanks for nothing, Paul Reiser, you dick.
The scariest scene in that movie to me isn't actually scary at all. When Ripley looks at all the eggs and it pans up and you see this egg sack and it pans over to the queen.
Brilliant scene. She stumbles into a nest and shit.
You get this intense, oh, fuck. That scene scares me, I'm sorry.
Some of the war sequences in this, where you have people getting lit on fire and falling off the banisters, pretty cool too. But did you know, and this is not me talking out my ass, Cameron has confirmed this movie is an allegory for the Vietnam War?
I think you're talking about your ass.
I'm not. Cameron has confirmed this. Technologically superior army force that goes into a strange area, and they're cocky, they're cocksure. They think they got this. They're overwhelmed very easily, very quickly, by what they thought was a technologically inferior race. Tell you, man, it's in there. Another thing that's in this movie, you know what this movie's about, man? You know what it's about? Motherhood. It's about motherhood.
Because mothers love their kids so much they will rip off their vagina to kill someone for setting their babies on fire.
I was talking more about Ripley's character arc. When Ripley's on Earth,
Ripley doesn't rip off her vagina.
She's so close to Jones, holding on to the one thing she still has. She says to Jones, "You're not coming with me in this one." What happened to Jones? Where's the Alien Dark Horse comic book talking about Jonesy's story? What happens after Aliens? Does he get adopted by a different family?
We should Google that one
Does
time.
He
what happened to Jonesy?
What happened to Jonesy? Anyway, it's not in the theatrical version. In director's cut, we find out that Ripley had a daughter who died while she was in stasis. Really only one scene devoted to that. She's in this holographic park. She finds out and she cries. Then she finds Newt, who becomes her surrogate daughter. There's some wonderful bonding scenes between the two of them. Newt's hiding underneath the bed, and Ripley gets down there with her. And that wonderful line of, "My mommy said there were no monsters." There are monsters. They mostly come out at night. Mostly. I was waiting for you to finish that line. Newt's pretty cool for a little girl. She's freaking tough. She survived in a colony full of aliens for a couple of months. You know? It is that new motherhood that drives her. The Queen Alien is a warped reflection of Ripley's motherhood. Now let's talk about the Queen Alien design-wise.
She has Ripley's mouth.
Takes the regular xenomorph mouth and it turns it into an evil grin.
Yeah.
It looks like what would happen if xenomorph knocked up a T-Rex.
Yeah.
And it has high heels on the feet.
It does.
That is such a weird Giger-esque thing, even though Giger didn't design the Queen Alien, James Cameron did. Unlike the dog alien in the next movie, Giger liked the Queen Alien. And I love the little arms on the chest.
Yes.
I love the giant version of the second mouth it has.
Yes.
I love the scorpion tail. All the stuff is cool. The best part of the Queen Alien is the crest. The royal crest. That's how you know she's the biggest bitch.
Yes. But she's the only female, isn't she?
They're an ant colony, so there's only one female.
See, all the more reason why they're bugs and not serpents.
It's a name, dude. That leads us into that amazing last act. Because this time Ripley's on the offense. The same thing happens. An alien stows away on the ship. When you first saw this movie, when Bishop's chest burst, did you think that somehow he had gotten a chest burster?
My thoughts were, oh shit!
When I first saw this movie, I was like, wait, Bishop got a chest burster? Can androids get impregnated? But no. And I think the only special effect in this movie that doesn't work, special effects in this film are fucking amazing. I think the only one that doesn't work is when the Queen rips Bishop in half. You can see the wires.
Well,
it's the only time the effects don't work in this movie. Because that fight between Ripley and the power loader.
Oh, God. Right?
And the Queen, get away from her, you bitch.
Yes.
Think about how difficult it would be to coordinate that fight between the power loader and the Queen. Think of all the wires and moving parts involved there, and it's flawless. Mm-hmm. Never can tell it's a special effect. It's amazing looking. That's some good filmmaking right there. It's so much cooler when the Queen gets sucked out the airlock, like flying for space, kicking her legs, like Aliens, damn good movie.
Oh, yeah.
As far as sequels go, it really is one of the best sequels of all time. Gotta be.
If not the best sequel of all time.
I personally prefer Alien, but both of these films are great.
I personally prefer Aliens to Alien.
Do you prefer the director's cut over the theatrical cut of Aliens?
A little bit. It explains a little more.
The director's cut has the stuff with Ripley's daughter, and that really adds a lot to the movie.
Yeah.
But it's not that big of a difference. The prologue with Newt's family.
Yes, which I think is nice added touch.
I love that. It's not necessary, but I like it. Ripley's daughter, and then the stuff with the robot guns. That's what got cut out.
You mean the turrets weren't in the...
Yeah, the turrets aren't in the theatrical version.
Well, then fuck the theatrical version.
Because of this fucking movie, every sci-fi story has to have a space marine in it now.
Yes.
Every first-person shooter made in the last decade owes its existence to aliens.
In case you forgot, the bitch is back.
It's here.
We have no weapons of any kind. For the last time.
Alien 3.
So they made another one.
Alien Part 3.
Alien Cube is what the title actually spells. Alien 3 had a problematic production. They went through 5 scripts and 3 directors before they got this movie made. Before we talk about the Alien 3 that was made, let's talk about the Alien 3s that weren't made. The first script, Ripley would have had a cameo, Hicks would have been the main character. It would have been about space communists get a hold of the xenomorphs and let them loose on a space mall. Okay, William Gibson, very famous cyberpunk writer, Eric Red, the guy who wrote Near Dark and The Hitcher, like, hey, I like those movies. He wrote a draft that would have had a space colony that was made to look like a southern small town being invaded by the xenomorphs, and it would have had things like a mom stabbing a xenomorph with a butcher knife. That sounds awful.
Yeah, but I would have watched that.
It sounds like it could have been schlocky fun, but the writer himself has said that that script was not good. And Rennie Harlan, the guy who made Die Hard 2, Long Kiss Goodnight, Nightmare on Elm Street 4, was apparently going to direct these versions of Alien 3. Then a filmmaker came on called Vincent Ward, and he envisioned this movie where Ripley crash lands on a wooden planet that's inhabited by monks. And when the alien shows up, the monks believe it is punishment for their sins. That had some really interesting ideas in it, which naturally is why it didn't get made. The executive said, this is too artistic, though a lot of those attributes ended up in the final film. Basically,
yeah, with all-male prison.
Ripley dying at the end was from that version of the script. And the guy who did direct this movie was David Fincher, who would go on to make Seven, Fight Club, Panic Room, The Social Network, Zodiac. Many of these are very good films, but David Fincher does not like this movie. He has disowned it. The studio was bossing him around. It was a chaotic production. They didn't have a finished script when the film started. The fact that this movie got made is a miracle, is the point I'm making. What's your general thoughts on Alien 3? It's a contentious film. People hate this movie.
I know you're going to disagree, but I like Alien Resurrection better.
Well, that's your opinion, and you're allowed to have that opinion.
Not saying it's a good movie. I'm just saying this one's worse.
Plot of Alien Cubed. Apparently, when the Queen Alien was on the shuttle, she laid a couple eggs. One of them gets out, impregnates Ripley, causes a fire. All the sleep pods are ejected. That seems reasonable. They land on, what is it, Fury 192 or something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
It's a prison planet. It's an all-male prison planet. Newt, Hicks, and Bishop don't survive the crash. Ripley's the only survivor.
Bishop actually survives.
He's in pieces. Anyway, there's an alien. It impregnates either a dog or an ox, depending on which version you're watching.
Wait, huh?
Let me explain. There are 2 cuts of this film. There is the theatrical cut, which runs about 2 hours. It was basically not made with David Fincher's involvement. There is what they call the assembly cut, which runs 2 hours and 20 minutes, which also was not made with David Fincher's involvement, because like I said, he wants nothing to do with this movie. Assembly cut reportedly shows what his original vision was. And in the original cut, the alien does not impregnate a dog, it impregnates an ox, because they're farming oxen there on the planet for food. A couple other differences. There's an extended subplot where they try to capture the xenomorph in a vault. One of the crazy prisoners lets it loose. Adds a lot to it. It makes it a much better film, I think.
Must watch the theatrical cut because it was a dog.
Yeah, that's the version most people have seen. This movie is not likable. Downbeat, grim movie. Visually, yellow-brown color. Not very visually appealing, and it's a very grim story. Ripley's on a shitty planet, surrounded by shitty people who either want to kill her or rape her. The corporation still does not give a shit about people. When she discovers that she's pregnant with an alien, she becomes suicidal. She flat out asks another character in the movie to kill her. All of that is depressing, but I think the thing people really hate about this movie is it kills Newt and Hicks. It not only kills Newt and Hicks, it kills them brutally. They actually do an autopsy on Newt and they cut her open. What do you think of that? Does it piss you off?
A little bit. Not so much Hicks, but it does piss me off to kill Newt.
Aliens, Ripley flies off with her happy family. She gets a good ending in that. On one level, it is mean that they take that away from her so completely. I would make the case killing Newton Hicks wasn't a nice thing to do, but it fits the tone of the series. Space is not a nice place. Space is full of penis-headed rape demons that just want to kill us so hard. Ripley says in Aliens, as bad as the aliens are, at least they don't screw over each other like people do. It's a downbeat story, and I would make the case that this film continues in that way. Now, does it take it too far and makes a movie that's rather unpleasant to watch? Sure. But I actually defend the killing of Newton Hicks. It was the right thing to do. Killing that little girl was a good thing.
It's the only movie to not have an android. The talking head.
Yeah, but what about Bishop 2?
Bishop 2 was not Bishop 2.
Originally, the intention was the bishop that shows up at the end of the movie is supposed to be the guy who invented the robot who it's modeled after, but has since been retconned into being another android. Though in the assembly cut, he bleeds human blood. The director's original intention was that it was a person. They've changed it. That's supposed to be another robot. Shaking his head, no, it's bullshit, you're wrong. What do you think of the prison aspect of Alien 3?
I don't know. This movie sucks.
Is this your least favorite of the series?
It really is.
Wow, I didn't know you felt so strongly about Alien 3. The whole thing that the prisoners are religious fanatics is interesting, and I like that the movie maintains the prison movie cliche of the hard-ass warden.
Those things work. The special effects are shitty.
Yeah.
There are like 2 scenes that work really well.
The special effects are uneven. Creature effects on the alien when it's in close-up is fine. But there are sequences when it's running around the prison. A lot of people mistake that for shitty CGI. It's not shitty CGI. It was a very awkward combination of a puppet and green screen. And no, it doesn't really look that good. Frequently, it looks like the monster isn't in the same scene with the people.
Yeah. The 2 scenes that I think work really well. The scene where the alien is all up in Ripley's face.
Oh yeah, that was all over the trailers and the posters. That's a very famous moment.
That's a really effective scene.
Yeah.
But even before then, the other scene that worked really well was after the facehugger had fallen off the dog, and he's sitting there petting the dog. What happened to you? The facehugger marks on the dog.
See, I saw the extended cut. I didn't see that scene.
You only know one good scene in the movie.
What do you think of the decision to make it a dog alien or an ox alien if you're watching the better cut?
To me, that is an interesting choice.
That's something this movie does that expands the mythology. The xenomorph takes on attributes of its host.
I want to see what happens when one of the engineers gets impregnated.
Prometheus 2 gets made. Maybe we'll see that. Have you seen the fan art of the Na'vi xenomorph? According to James Cameron, Avatar and Alien are in the same universe.
Does that mean Sigourney Weaver plays both?
I don't know. Does that mean the company in Avatar is Weyland-Yutani?
It's the company that owns the other half of the Earth.
Okay. There's fan art on the internet of what a Na'vi xenomorph would look like.
And?
It's pretty cool. Expanded Universe explains why this is. This is so prepared for whatever environment it's going out into. Okay, it's a little gimmicky. The whole concept of the dog alien is a little gimmicky, and the Kenner toy line, which we'll talk about later, really ran with the whole animal alien idea. The quadrupedal alien is alright. The design is basically the same. Its head and tail are slightly different. But one thing I hate about the xenomorph in this, and they do it in the next movie too, and I hate it, it can spit its acid blood. It's bullshit. It's bullshit! It's easy to explain the alien chews its mouth open and spits the blood, but it's stupid. It's gimmicky. I hate it.
I never saw that as it spits its acid blood. I just thought it just spits acid.
The alien's scary enough. It doesn't need to spit acid. It's a horror movie. This one actually works alright. The setting provides a lot of places for the xenomorph to run and hide. I like that it's just one. Takes it back to the first movie where there's a singular threat. The gore in this movie is awesome. The dude gets torn apart in a fan. The alien chews a guy's face off. Picks up Charles Dance and blows a hole in his head. Charles Dance, he's the coroner in this, and he was the bad guy in Last Action Hero.
Okay.
He's one of the few guys on the planet that's nice to her. I guess he's Ripley's love interest, so naturally he gets killed off halfway through the movie.
Well, he sleeps with her.
Ripley gets laid in this one.
Finally, after like 80 years.
So what do you think of Charles S. Dutton, the black guy?
He's probably the second best actor in the movie.
He's not a jerk to Ripley. The supporting cast in this is pretty good. Charles Dance is good. An actor called Ralph Brown plays the simpleton assistant to the warden. I like him. What do you think of the ending? Ripley's death. She sacrifices herself.
I've always hated that. If that would have been the end of the series, it wouldn't have pissed me off.
Should have been the end of the
It was
series.
intentionally meant to be the end, or initially meant to be the end of the series.
Obviously.
I think that she's dead. She doesn't have to go through this anymore. I mean, I guess it's poetic.
It is, though I hate that she does the Jesus pose as she goes into the flames. We get it, she's sacrificing herself. One thing that's not in the assembly cut, that's in the theatrical cut that I like, the chest burster comes out as she's going down, and she's cradling it. That's interesting. The final scene in the movie goes back to her escape pod, and it plays her farewell message from the very first film. Moves you a little bit, gets at something. But obviously, Alien 3 is a contentious film. You're not the only person who thinks it's the weakest of the series. People hate this movie. People hate that they killed off Newt. I go to bat for it, and you hate it.
I hate it.
Who are you?
Ripley Ellen, Lieutenant First Class, number 36706.
Ellen Ripley died 200 years ago.
He is breeding an alien species.
Wish you could understand what we're trying to do here.
You want to tell us what this is?
It's a queen. She'll breed. You'll die.
Despite the storyline more or less ending in the last movie definitively, somebody said, we gotta make another one. The funny thing is, Alien 3 wasn't even that successful. Guess who wrote Alien Resurrection?
Who?
Josh Whedon. The dude who made Buffy and directed The Avengers, you know, that guy?
Yeah. So he said more successes than failures. What's your point?
The list of directors that were considered for this project: Danny Boyle, right off of Trainspotting, Peter Jackson, and Bryan Singer were all offered to film. Now imagine what Dead Alive, Heavenly Creatures era Peter Jackson could have done with an Alien movie.
Wow.
The movie was directed by a French filmmaker named Jean-Pierre Jeunet, who made some wonderful French movies. City of Lost Children, Delicatessen, and then after this he made a movie called Amélie, which is maybe the most adorable film ever made. It's notable that this is the only English-language film he's ever made. What's the plot for Alien Resurrection?
They clone Ripley.
It's 200 years later.
They clone Ripley because that's a good idea. They take out the alien that was in her chest, which just so happens to be another queen. They make that bad decision, and it goes wrong.
There's some space mercenaries that show up. The important thing is that the clone Ripley has some xenomorph DNA in her,
yes,
which just mostly turns her into a bitch.
I'm probably going to get lynched by the internet for this, but I kind of like clone Ripley.
You should get lynched. The way that you dislike Part 3 is the way I dislike this movie. I think this movie is colossally dumb. Deeply, unforgivably dumb. Everything about it is dumb. The whole film is a series of very poor filmmaking. It is infected with the sense of cool for coolness sake that throws out anything that was interesting about the Alien series up to this point. Now let's break down those problems. First off, cloning doesn't work that way. The alien was not part of Ripley's base genetics. It would not be in a clone of her. Secondly, they're cloning her from 200-year-old matter? Okay.
Let me stop you there.
Did the technology not exist until then?
Well, sure.
What do you think of that scene where Ripley 8, which is technically what this character is called, enters that room full of the rejects?
Okay, that's a little over the top.
Over the top is the word for that scene. That is super melodramatic and ridiculous. And as I previously established, there is no reason for the xenomorph DNA to be in with hers. Cloning doesn't work that way.
Dude, it's a movie.
I watched the director's cut of this. It was the scene where they say Weyland-Yutani no longer exists. It was bought out by Walmart. Is that in the theatrical version?
I don't think so.
Okay, because I think that line is silly. After 200 years, they're still after the xenomorphs. The military is still trying to turn them into a weapon. This is the third failed attempt, and every previous time the creature has proven to be an uncontrollable asset. Always ends badly for everyone involved. They really should have thought up a better motivation for why the aliens are back in this one.
Whatever.
You think that's fair?
No.
Hear me out, though. The way the corporation handles the alien seems to suggest a certain oversight on their behalf. They escape way too easily. How do the aliens escape their holding cell?
By killing another alien.
Right, and the acid blood melt through the floor. Now, nobody saw that coming, even though these creatures are known to have acid blood.
Okay, that's fair. I guess they didn't think that they would kill one another.
As always, the humans underestimate how intelligent the alien is, though as I previously established, they really shouldn't still be doing that in the fourth movie. Something else I hate about this movie. The alien redesign. The alien design changed a bit in every movie. Even in Alien, they have slightly different heads in that one. They always maintain the integrity of that H.R. Giger design. But this one has a different head, bluntier head, more ridges and spikes on its body. It has the raptor dinosaur legs, which is why I always call these the raptor aliens. And then it has the big wide shark tail. They took one of the best monster designs in cinema history, and then they incorporated a bunch of aspects from lesser monster designs into it.
Whatever.
I bitched about this one particular scene to you before. Earlier, a scientist was seen torturing an alien with this icy gas spray thing. Later in the scene, that same scientist is in the pen looking at what's happened, and the alien activates the freezy gas ray with its inner mouth. Is that out of character for the xenomorphs? Because I think it would probably just go in and kill him.
I think so.
Really?
If you pay attention, when he's pushing the button to activate the ice spray, the xenomorphs are watching him. The xenomorph looks at him and looks at the button, looks at him, looks at the button, and then they hit the button. It's to show how intelligent the xenomorph is.
Well, we already know that, though.
I know, but it's for the person that doesn't know that.
You said earlier that you like Ripley 8.
I don't like the fact that she's bitchy. I don't like that, but I do like some of the things that being laced with xenomorph DNA allows her to do.
Gives her super strength, and it gives her the acid blood.
Right.
Though not as acidic as the aliens.
She can also withstand the acid blood, which allows her to get a little bit more up close and personal with the aliens.
Yeah, because there's a scene where Michael Wincott's character gets torn in half. Ripley pokes a head through his body and shoots an alien or something and crawls up through its corpse.
And then rips out the tongue and hands it to Winona Ryder.
Yeah, you want a souvenir, and then later on she threatens to rip Ron Perlman's tongue out and says the same thing.
You want another souvenir?
Yeah.
I like that it allows her to get a little bit more up close and personal with the aliens. How are you going to make someone that threw herself into a fire while an alien was bursting out of her chest just to make sure that this shit didn't happen again more badass?
Easy answer to that question, I wouldn't bring back the character. It removes her humanity, and it changes her character arc in a way that isn't as interesting.
But that's the idea, Zach, is that she's supposed supposed to be less human.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I don't like this movie. She's accompanied by these mercenaries that are importing people to be used as alien breeders, essentially. And that's where a lot of the color in this film comes from. Very good cast.
Which is typical for pretty much all the movies.
Yeah, they all have good cast. Ron Perlman, I've already mentioned, he plays Johnner. Michael Wincott, who is probably best known as the bad guy from The Crow. An actor named Dominique Ninon, who is in all of Jean-Pierre Jeunet's movies, plays an invalid in a wheelchair who has a shotgun hidden in his chair.
I thought that was the other dwarf. Like Brad Dorff, I thought he was the other dwarf.
No.
Isn't there two dwarfs in this?
I don't think so.
Then who's the other dwarf?
I don't know who the other dwarf is, unless you're talking about Tim Conway as dwarf. I'm leaving this in.
I thought Brad Dorff had a brother or something.
I don't think so.
You're deleting all that, by the way.
We mentioned Cal, Winona Ryder's character. Guess what her big secret is?
She's an android.
She's a robot, because every one of these movies has got to have a robot in it.
Okay, but did you honestly know that she was a robot before the reveal?
Yeah. Ripley mentioned she can feel the ship moving through space. She's part alien, has extrasensory activity. Winona Ryder mentions she can feel the same thing.
Okay, but that doesn't necessarily mean that she was an android.
She's alright in this. She gives a pretty decent performance. One of the things about the movie I'm more ambivalent about, some people, because this is a Josh Whedon thing, have read into the relationship between Ripley and Cal as possibly homoerotic. I actually believe that's not the case at all.
I think it's more like Ripley and Newt.
Exactly. She's another surrogate daughter. Ripley 8 mentioned something about a little girl once that had bad dreams, but she doesn't remember her name anymore, which is another thing I don't like. One of my problems with the film is that they keep expanding the supporting cast. As Ripley and the Mercs move through the spaceship, they keep adding characters. There's a soldier guy who's obviously evil and betrays them. There's one of the human test subjects who's really annoying. Purvis is that character's name. We gotta talk about Brad Dorff, who is typically unhinged. He plays crazy mad scientist at the end of the movie, after he's been captured by the aliens, all cocooned up, and he delivers this monologue about how the newborn is this beautiful, beautiful butterfly. He's doing the Chucky voice. It's the exact same voice.
It's just Brad Dorff's voice.
Well, no wonder he plays so many crazy characters. He sounds like a psychopath. He's one of the more entertaining parts of the film, though all of these characters are very broad and cartoonish. That bothers me too, because I'm a bitchy fanboy and you can't please me. Let's talk about the newborn. This is this movie's contribution to the alien mythology. Now, it's dumb the way it happens. Somehow, the queen alien develops a uterus and gives birth to a live child. They don't really explain how or why. Something to do with the gene splicing. And out of this comes this big albino, half-human, half-xenomorph creature that kills the queen because it recognizes Ripley as its real mother, for some reason. Design-wise, what do you think of the newborn?
It looks cool.
There's nothing especially Giger-esque about it, but it's not bad.
But I don't think that the newborn should have looked Giger-esque. A true hybrid.
Yeah, it's not a bad design. I like the big hollow eyelids, and then you can see the human eyes inside.
The skull-looking face.
Yeah, that's cool. But I also like that the newborn is kind of sympathetic. Never before have any of the xenomorphs or any of the aliens been sympathetic. They're all straight-up monsters. And there's something pathetic about the newborn, even though it is killing people.
I can agree with that.
And monsters always work better when they're a little sympathetic, I think. That it's most indebted to aliens.
Yeah.
This one's pretty heavy on the action.
Right, and it's pretty heavy on the aliens.
I don't like any of the action scenes either. It's a lot more of that same cool for cool sake aesthetic. The one guy has the guns in his wrist, and there's a scene where they're on the ladders and Ron Perlman's dual wielding, and that entire underwater sequence can go to hell. Fuck that slow motion shit. What do you think of the scene where the test subject shoves the chest burster through the other guy's head? Was that needed?
It wasn't needed, but it was cool. You mean to tell me you didn't think that was cool? That seems like a really badass way to kill somebody.
I don't like it that much. Jean-Pierre Jeunet is a very visual filmmaker, and in his French films, he creates all sorts of wonderful visuals all the time. And there are some memorable visuals in this. My favorite scene in a movie, which I obviously do not like, when Ripley is abducted by the xenomorphs and carried to the Queen. There's this dreamlike shot of her being cradled by the aliens as they're carrying her off. I like that shot. That's a good shot. And there are a couple other nice moments in the movie. Visually, production-wise, all these films are great. I just really hate Alien Resurrection. I'm sorry. Do you have a rebuttal to my issues?
To me, it's more entertaining than that boring piece of shit that's Alien 3.
I've hated this movie. I've always hated it. This is not the first time I've ranted about it. Oh, we didn't talk about how they kill the newborn. We gotta talk about that.
Well, they shoot a hole in the window.
Well, no, she melts a hole with her blood.
Oh, yeah.
And then it gets sucked out through this tiny little hole. That was graphic.
But I remember when we first talked about that movie, the first time we ever talked about that movie together.
So, 2001?
You seem to really like that scene.
Well, I was a kid then. On a paper level, it's cool. That's what this whole movie is like. It's brainless. And it has no heart.
These are ancient civilizations that were separated by centuries. And yet, this same pictogram was discovered in every one of them.
I think they want us to come and find them.
They're leaving.
To go where?
Earth.
We were so wrong.
For years, there was talks of doing a new one. I remember at one point, James Cameron and Ridley Scott wanted to collaborate on a new one, but James Cameron only makes a movie once every 10 years.
You know, when he needs the money.
But eventually, I think it was around 2010, I remember the gears started turning on a new project described as both an Alien prequel and a completely new original science fiction property. In retrospect, that's a fair description. The resulting movie was 2012's Prometheus, which we've talked a little bit about on the show on our first Phantom Award episode.
Oh, yeah.
This is set in the same universe as Alien, and it does revisit some of the same aspects, but it is mostly an unrelated story. Sort of. Kind of. That's the kind of movie Prometheus is. It's a sort of kind of movie. The internet got really pissed off about this film. When the movie came out, it was very well received by critics. It got great reviews, and the initial audience response was very positive, but then people started thinking about it. And this is how I was with the movie. They saw it, they really liked it, and then they started thinking about it, and they realized, wait, there's a lot of things about this that don't line up. And then they started bitching about it, and there were hundreds and hundreds of think pieces and essays about how Prometheus is secretly bad. Now, I'm of the opinion that Prometheus is not secretly bad. It's not great. There are some moments in it that are very, very good. Some narrative issues that are glaring. Hey, what's the plot of Prometheus, man? This crazy space movie.
Kids find fossil. Fossil leads them to space expedition. Space expedition leads them to doom.
Nice. This movie is set in the near future, set in 2091, which is potentially within our lifetimes.
Oh, God.
So it's set a lot sooner than any of the previous Alien movies. Oh, and the reason it's called Prometheus is that's the name of the ship they're on. And the main connection to the Alien series, at least until they get to the planet, expedition is funded by the Whaling Corporation.
Right. And it has the engineers in it.
This is the movie that really explains what the space jockeys were and what they were up to. Okay, it sort of explains what they were up to. We do get to see what a living space jockey would look like, and they call them the engineers. They're basically big blue humans, big black eyes, and when they're in their battle suits, they have that weird elephant trunk thing on their heads, that we saw on the Space Jockey. Was that a disappointing reveal to you, that they looked like big humans?
A little bit.
They justify it by saying they created us. These aliens genetically engineered us, thus engineer. One of the reasons why this movie's backlash was so severe, people thought Ridley Scott is returning to the Alien universe. That's a big deal. Though, think about it. Is it really a big deal? It had been a while since Ridley Scott made a really good movie. Ridley Scott's made some great films, but he's a busy guy. He makes a movie about once a year, and they're not all hits. Sometimes you get a Gladiator, sometimes you get a Robin Hood.
He did Robin Hood?
Yeah, the Russell Crowe one.
Oh, that Robin Hood.
Yeah, the one you've completely forgot about.
Yeah, that one.
When Prometheus was first written, originally written by a guy named John Spaihts, S-P-A-I-H-T-S.
Mr. Spaihts, Mr. Spaihts.
His original script was a direct prequel to Alien. Resolved a lot of the problems people would have with this movie. The spaceship was actually the ship from the first movie. They were on the same planet. Instead of the weird cuttlefish squid thing coming out of Numi Rapace, it was a xenomorph, and it was a xenomorph that attacked her in the end of the movie instead of the engineer suddenly going crazy. Ridley Scott apparently didn't want to make a direct prequel. He brought in this writer called Damon Lindelof, who's famous for Lost, which is a show I didn't watch, but apparently was notorious for introducing mysterious things and never providing satisfying answers to them. A thing this movie kind of does. Mm-hmm. It's ambitious. It's extremely ambitious. This isn't just a monster movie. It has serious questions about the nature of the universe, about God, man's place in the universe, and I admire the movie for that. Visually, the film is impressive. Special effects are gorgeous. Them exploring the caves, and a lot of other really notable, splendid moments. But would you agree with me? This film has a certain lack of internal logic.
Yes.
Definitely raises a lot more questions than it answers.
Why, if David was like the first android ever, was he less glitchy than Ash, several years later model?
Maybe it's the difference between a prototype and a mass production market. That was a problem. David behaves erratically, inscrutably. His motivations seem to vary from scene to scene. And what also varies from scene to scene is the properties of the black slime.
Yes.
It can do all sorts of things. Why exactly is never really explained. David poisons Dr. Shaw's husband with it, and he gets really, really sick. Another guy gets exposed to it, and he turns into a rage zombie. Turns the little worms in the dirt into these... They look like penises, and then they open up their mouths, and they look like vaginas, because, hey, it's an alien movie. They see these holograms of the engineers running into a room, the room where all the black slime is. What were they going in there for? Why does the engineer head they bring back to the laboratory open it up, come back to life, and then explode?
Because it gets exposed to the air.
But there was oxygen inside of the tunnel. What about the scene when the character who's a biologist, he discovers the penis worm, which is officially called a hammerpede. You're a biologist. You see a mysterious animal. What do? A, keep your distance. B, run away. C, try to cuddle it.
I'm gonna go with C, Alex.
Well, that's what this guy does, and it works out poorly for him. Penis worm tears open the suit and crawls into his mouth because it's an alien movie. Its parts are greater than its whole. There are some sequences in this that are really fantastic and impressive. I was so happy to see this movie committed to being a horror film. Really continues the series' tradition of body horror.
Especially the cesarean scene.
Yeah, that's definitely the highlight. How it happens is convoluted. She's pregnant with a devil squid. She has to get it out. There just happens to be this metapod that can do surgery. And it's a really cool scene because it's very intense. She gets cut open and it pulls this fucking squid. But then she realizes, oh, I'm trapped inside of this tube with this devil squid. Tension of the scene changes. And that's a spectacular sequence. And there's some other cool body horror stuff after her husband is poisoned with the slime. A worm crawls out of his eye, which is meh. All that stuff is cool. And I really like the cast in this film. If you're fans of the show, you know we gave Michael Fassbender a Phantom for this, and we nominated Noomi Rapace, who I like a lot in general. And she's great in this movie. Dr. Shaw is a worthy successor to Ripley. I admire her toughness.
She might be a tad bit more badass than Ripley.
Yeah, she cuts herself open, tears out a monster, and then keeps going for the rest of the film.
Yep.
Fassbender's great. Charlize Theron as Vickers is very good, very much in her wheelhouse. Idris Elba, the internet's favorite actor. Okay, no, Benedict Cumberbatch is the internet's favorite actor. Idris Elba is the internet's second favorite actor. He plays the captain of the ship, and he's charming. What do you think of Guy Pearce as the 100-year-old Mr. Whalen? That makeup got criticized a lot. I think it's the only special effect in the movie that doesn't work.
Yeah.
The last act of this movie, unfortunately, is a bit of a mess. Several subplots going at the same time. Clumsily brings them all together. Crew of the Prometheus sacrifice themselves to blow up the ship, and all this shit's going on. How do you think Prometheus functions as a prequel to Alien?
I think it's effective.
The movie feels a bit like a cock tease. Leads you to believe that we're on the planet that they landed on in the first movie. Engineer ship that lands, crashes, is the derelict ship. But none of these things are true. It's a different planet. It's a different ship that just happens to look and feel exactly like the one from the first movie. I don't think it is
a different ship.
Apparently it is. It's a different planet, so it has to be a different ship.
Doesn't she fly it off at the end?
No, that's a different ship she flies off. And that's another thing. This movie ends with a big tease for its sequel. And then there is the introduction of the Deacon. There's a very convoluted series of events that lead to the creation of the xenomorph. Black slime plus human DNA makes cuttlefish. Cuttlefish mouth rapes engineer, then that makes a xenomorph. Or a xenomorph ancestor. They threw that last scene in there to say, hey guys, this is still an alien movie. I stand by my opinion of Prometheus. It's visually spectacular. There are great sequences in it, nice performances, and unfortunately the plot is just full of holes and narrative disorientation.
Maybe they'll release a director's cut or a writer's cut. They can release a writer's cut.
Follows that first screenplay?
Yeah.
From what I've read of it, that first screenplay sounds like the movie we all wanted to see.
I really feel, after talking to Neill, based on how much he loves, especially the first two, he really has a great beat on it. I'm very excited. I can't think of a director I would rather do this with than Neill Blomkamp.
Prometheus, despite being a risky proposition, was a financially successful film, and apparently a sequel is happening for 2016.
I'm more worried about the Alien 5.
Aside from Prometheus 2, there was not any other news for a Alien sequel, a new Alien movie, up until earlier this year. Neill Blomkamp, director of District 9, Elysium, and Chappie, put up some artwork on his Facebook page or something. And it was his proposal for a new Alien movie, and it showed Ripley and Hicks with half of his face scarred. It was a picture of Ripley in a xenomorph disguise. He said he pitched this to Fox. They turned it down. Puts it up on the internet. Internet loves it. Then Fox comes back to him and says, hey, let's make this movie. Now, I have some thoughts about that. Let's hear yours first.
Why is Ripley wearing the xenomorph exoskeleton suit?
We don't know. We don't know anything about the plot of the movie.
Why?
Because it looks cool?
That sounds like a toy that Kenner had back in the day.
Yeah, ATAX.
How did Hicks come back?
Well, this movie will apparently disregard Alien 3 and Resurrection.
Oh, thank God.
I dislike that. And it's not because I'm in love with Alien 3 or Resurrection. Ripley's story ended in Alien 3, and there's really nowhere else to go from there. Using the explanation that some people like, Alien 3 and Resurrection were dreams Ripley had. I hate big retcons like that. It's lazy. If you want to change the events of the previous movie, think of a better way to write it out than just saying, it didn't happen. So,
okay, well, how would you rewrite it?
Okay, I wouldn't bring Ripley back.
Okay,
I just keep going back to that.
If Fox came up to you and said, we will pay you $500 million right now
to make an Alien movie under the condition that it has Ripley and Hicks in it.
Yes.
I guess I would have to continue from Resurrection, and I guess Hicks would have to be a clone too? Or maybe it's his twin brother who happens to have the exact same scars. But okay, wait. Hicks was abducted by the engineers who brought him back to life. There. That's some Superman Lives shit right there. I'm saying there's no way around that. That isn't awkward, which is why they shouldn't do it.
Really? That's the best you can come up with?
Well,
and you're criticizing these people?
I'm on the spot here. Neill Blomkamp has proven himself to be a one-trick pony. I like District 9. Elysium was I haven't seen Chap yet. By all accounts, it's not that good. What are your thoughts on the potential of an Alien 5?
About time.
You're excited for this?
Yeah.
You're excited to see a 60-year-old Sigourney Weaver fighting xenomorphs?
Yeah.
You're excited about them bringing Hicks back from the dead?
Yeah. More importantly, that actor.
His career needs it. You know what they should have done? They should have brought back Hudson instead. You don't see a dead body. You just see him get pulled under the floor by the xenomorphs.
That's true.
Maybe he fought his way out when no one was looking. He fought his way out and he found another escape pod and he got off of the planet before it exploded. See, now we're using our noodles.
Maybe. Bill Paxton now?
He looks better than Sigourney Weaver does.
Sigourney Weaver doesn't look that bad.
I don't know. I'm not really enthusiastic about more Ripley stories. I think her story ended in Alien 3. And Neill Blomkamp has an uneven track record. We'll see if the movie gets made. There's still plenty of time for production to fall apart.
They're unstoppable! But we've got to give it our best shot! Send in the Marines! We're the Space Marines, armed with the latest high-tech heavy metal. Queen Alien breathing down your back? I blast her with the Bug Rocker. Button heads with a Bull Alien? Ripley frags them with the Turbo Torch. Alien invasion problem?
Send in the Marines!
Alien! Space Marine figures and Alien figures, each sold separately.
Before we wrap up, I want to mention some things about the Aliens expanded universe. And there's a big one. There's comic books, novels, video games, and toys, and all sorts of stuff. I'll be totally honest, I've never read any of the Dark Horse comics. They were everywhere when I was a kid. You couldn't go to the comic shop without seeing a whole bunch of them. Dark Horse really ran with their Alien comics. Some of the video games I definitely remember. Konami Arcade Aliens game. It was in a movie theater in Winchester, and I played the shit out of it. It's a side-scrolling shoot-'em-up. It's a bit like Contra, but with officially licensed xenomorphs, as opposed to the fake rip-off xenomorphs in Contra. It's a lot of fun. Capcom did a Alien vs. Predator side-scrolling beat-em-up, which is awesome.
Yes.
That one's great. Apparently they did a light gun game called Alien 3 The Gun.
No.
I never read that one, but apparently it was a lot like the Terminator light gun game, both Alien, so it would have been better. Alien Trilogy on PlayStation, the increasingly inaccurately titled Alien Trilogy. That was a first-person shooter. That one I remember playing at a friend's house as a kid and enjoying it quite a bit. There have been two ones in recent memory that people seem to talk about. Did you play either of these? Aliens, Colonial Marines? I remember there being a lot of hype for that, and then the actual game apparently was mediocre.
Yeah.
Was it just last year they released a game called Alien Isolation that people apparently actually like?
Yeah, could you play as Ripley's daughter, I think?
Is this in continuity with the previous movies? Because I think that was the big deal with Colonial Marines. It was supposed to be in continuity with the films, and I think that was where the explanation that Hicks is somehow alive came from. And they're going to springboard off of that for the new movie. I haven't played any of these games. Now the toys. The Alien toys.
First of all, the only human anybody ever gave a fuck about was Ripley.
Definitely remember the Bishop toy. It did not look like Lance, okay? The toy Bishop had a shaved head, but the cool thing about him is that you could tear him apart.
Yeah.
But the Aliens is where it was at.
Oh, yeah.
The toy line really ran with, an alien incubates inside of an animal, and the resulting alien takes on characteristics of that animal. That was the whole gimmick of this toy line. There was a bull alien, a rhino alien, a snake, a mantis, a crab, a gorilla, panther. There was also an alien that would break apart and explode, right? I had the bull alien as a kid, and you pressed a button and its head shot forward. Which one of those, out of the ones I just named, were your favorites?
I always liked the exploding alien, and I had multiples of the gorilla alien.
Why the gorilla?
It's the one that looked the most like...
The ones from the movie?
Yeah.
Could fill its head full of water and it would squirt.
The blue one.
Okay.
Because they were all a different color, too.
Because it was a toy line, you have to make them colorful. Because if you're going to sell toys of intergalactic, penis-headed rape demons to kids, they need to be colorful. The bull alien was bright pink, I remember that.
I owned them all.
They were well played with and loved.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently in the toy line, there was a queen alien that had wings that could fly.
Had it.
And I know you had it because for years, when we were getting to know each other, I didn't know about the Kenner toy. I didn't know this existed. Anytime I would mention the queen alien, you would say, you mean the queen alien from the movie? Or do you mean the flying queen alien? For years, I thought you were fucking crazy. I had no idea what you were talking about. Did he see like an Italian alien ripoff that had a flying thing? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? No idea what this was. The internet has vindicated you.
Yes.
Mea culpa. Apparently they did plan on making a Saturday morning cartoon show to tie in with the toys. I guess they thought, we're okay with our kids playing with toys of penis-headed intergalactic rape demons. But watching a cartoon about penis-headed intergalactic rape aliens, oh, that's a bridge too far. Apparently a pilot exists. It's never been leaked to the internet. God, I hope it is at some point. Because
right?
I desperately want to see this. There are pictures of it out there. The show itself has never been released. Fox really needs to slip that as a special feature onto a Blu-ray or something.
Right?
Get away from her, you bitch!
That's the Alien franchise, and it's a series that means a lot to us. This is a big one. You know, this is one of the big horror sci-fi franchises. We probably should have gotten to it a lot sooner.
Probably.
That's what the show's going to be about from now on. Getting to topics we should have gotten to already. That's kind of what this whole summer is going to be. Do you have anything you want to scream in the vacuum of space before we get shot at the airlock?
Yeah.
That was clever what you just did. Hey, you can email us your alien xenomorph shriekings at bangersandmash88@yahoo.com. That's the word bangers, letter N, word mash 88. Facebook, www.facebook.com/The Bangers and Mash Show. Hey, we told you we'd do horror again this time. You got anything you want to say to the audience, Mr. Mash? Mr. Mash?
Kill me.
Oh, come on. The show isn't that bad.
Game over, man. It's game over.